What's happening, everybody? Hope you're having a fantastic whatever day you're watching this. Talking trucks tonight. One of the things I wanted to visit with you guys about is a topic that was pretty hot not that long ago, but it got a little bit washed out. And I wanted to bring it back up, and that is, do you go V8 or do you go Hurricane Inline 6? Or is there something else that you're looking at entirely outside of a Mopar brand? One of the problems that I've had coming into this whole truck thing, and one of the issues that I had with my Ram, was that e-torque system. I just did not like it. Really did mount up for me as a bit of buyer's remorse in a way. I had, I had sunk a bunch of time and effort into that truck, and I really didn't feel like I got much out of it when I did the tune, the cold air intake, and was trying to pull numbers out of that thing. Although I was pulling pretty decent numbers in terms of quarter mile, 0 to 60, stuff like that. It wasn't the performance of the thing. It was how the e-torque system, how do I explain it? It was intrusive. It would like kick in and it would act weird and it would turn off. It felt like it was dragging the truck down. It felt kind of strange. Now, if you want a V8 and you're a Mopar fan, the only way you can get one now is with that e-torque system. And for me, that was going to be a hard no. In fact, again, I can't tell you, when I'm talking about buyer's remorse on my Ram, I'm not kidding. If that truck didn't have the e-torque system, I may still have it. But with that being said, I got rid of it and got an F-150 with a Coyote. And I did that in full knowledge of this Hurricane 6 coming down the pipe. We've got two variants, standard output and high output. Standard output, 420 horse, 470 torque. High output, checking in, at least as an advertised, 510 horsepower and 500 pound-feet of torque. Now, interestingly enough, that the high output variant, it's going to be reserved, it looks like, for larger ticket vehicles. But the standard output looks to be pretty popular, or at least will be the most popular, because it'll be the only one really, in terms of a V8-ish power output. But where I'm going with this is that it's a pretty stout engine in its own right. But are you a player with something like that? And I think for me, I got to looking at it and I thought, I just don't trust it yet. And here's the other weird thing. You don't hear of anybody getting enthusiastic about it. You don't hear a lot of folks that are just itching to jump in the middle of either one of those engines. And for reasons that would make sense, right? I mean, there's no operating system cracked yet for it, so tuning's out of the option, or it's not an option, it's out of the question for now. But when I started researching these things, nobody that I could find, I'm sure they're out there, but I could not find any dyno information on these engines. And that's the weird part about it. I couldn't find anybody that's thrown a standard output Hurricane on a dyno and just said, hey, this is what we got out of it. But there's a lot of data on the Coyote. And if you're a fan of V8s, you've only got 3 coming up. Once all of this Hurricane Inline 6 hits, you only have 3 V8s. You'll have the Coyote, the 5.3, and the 6.2. And a lot of times guys forget about the 6.2. The 5.3 and the 6.2 obviously are the GM offerings. But you get a lot of guys that'll forget about the 6.2 because it really is only available in very high trims. So you don't see guys really buying it. The 5.3, the 5.3 is a bit of a dog, and I hate to say it like that. I'm pretty sure it responds well to tuning, but right out of the box, that thing's not all that great. Quite frankly, this Gen 4, almost said Hemi, the Gen 4 Coyote, that's a little bit different animal. So I'm looking at some dyno charts here. And by the way, guys, I've done a standalone video I just haven't posted it yet, but it's on this particular topic. This is kind of like the pre-chat before I throw that video up. By the way, just some behind the curtains. That video, I had the worst writer's block with that video. I would get started and it was a strong start, and then it would just zing, veer off into God only knows where that thing was going. Anyway, I had a lot of starts and restarts on that, so I'm just putting it out there as content. If you don't make the live show and you don't want to sit through an entire live show with this truck stuff, see the other video. But here's something that I wanted to bring to y'all's attention in terms of power output to the rear wheels and why that Coyote may start getting a bit more attention. I mean, it's not like, quite frankly, it's not like it's any secret, but talking about the Hemi just in general, you're looking at numbers to the rear wheels of about 320 horsepower and about 330 pound-feet of torque. Real smooth. And right, I'm just looking at AFE's dynos, and AFE, by the way, puts out a ton of data with their dynos. So that's just what I'm going off of. You can go off the lowest number or the highest number. It really doesn't matter. They stay pretty consistent, and I like the data that they post up with their dynos. So I'm just going to go off of that. Anyway, rounding up 320 and 330 out of the Hemi. Not too bad, but it doesn't translate directly into 395 horsepower and 410 pound-feet of torque or whatever it's rated at these days. It's a bit less, but it could have been because of when the truck was dynoed, and there's a lot of variables that come into play. But basically, if you compare those numbers with where the Coyote is, remember what we say, 320 and 330 for the Hemi? Stock numbers, the new Gen 4 Coyote, 345, that's rounding down, by the way, from 347, 345 and 370 torque. Guys, that's 25 horsepower and a full 40 pound-feet of torque different. Now, you can argue, well, one could have had 87 octane and the other one could have had 93 or this, that, or whatever. Guys, it doesn't matter. You're not going to get there from here. And by the way, the dyno charts look smooth as silk on the Hemi. If anything, I would argue that the 5.0 might have been a little bit octane limited. So it doesn't really matter one way or another. You're still looking at 25 horsepower and a full 40 pound-feet of difference, pound-feet of torque difference. So where do you go with that? That is a massive difference, and it puts the Coyote into some rarefied air, which is to say inline six turbo numbers. It wouldn't take much more torque out of the Coyote to bump it into, well, that standard output torque figure, and it's already basically there in horsepower. Plus it's a V8, and it's got all the noise of a V8. It's got, in essence, the torque of the Turbo 6 and the horsepower of a V8. What's not to love? And the way that those freaking Coyotes make torque is just absolutely crazy. I mean, the way they've got those new Coyotes making power, and I can attest to this because I own one. Guys, it's the difference between driving a Ram with a 321 and a Ram with a 392 gear. If you get out of a truck with a 321 gear and drive a 392, and you're like, damn, this is different. It's like that, except it's got the chops on the highway that the 392 gear trucks, it falls into a weird transmission ratio thing. With the 392 gears, combined ratio just doesn't really have the top end hit. Well, this thing's that's what it does best, right? So anyway, getting back into it, guys, there's a lot that comes with this that I'm finding that I don't know that there's going to be a whole lot of an audience, at least the V8 guys, right? So the idea is that, well, if you're not going to have a V8, then you've got to have a 6 that makes power like a V8. Not the same power as a V8. It has to make more just to stay in lockstep with its contemporaries. But it's got to make power like a V8, meaning it's going to rev to at least, 55 or 6,000 RPM, somewhere in that range. It looks like the standard output won't do that. It's going to basically cap out somewhere around 5 to 5,500 RPM, but that's not too bad. That's where the Hemi caps out. So it's kind of the same. But when you start looking at, well, what are going to be the issues? And, well, what have been the issues with other 6-cylinder turbos? I see where a lot of guys don't get into that. So at least with a pickup truck, because it's one thing if you're building a hot rod, but a truck has got to be a truck, and it's got to have durability. It's got to deal with misuse and abuse, knuckleheads driving it, the whole bit, right? So it's got a lot that it's going to have to contend with. Will 26 or 24 pounds of boost manage that with the standard output? What about the 30 pounds of boost that it's going to take to make the power out of that high output variant? How's that going to look for long-term durability? We just don't know that yet. We don't have enough testing yet on board with the Grand Wagoneers or the Wagoneers in general, the standard output or the high output variants. I don't know that there's that tried and true quality that you can really lean on with those things. So I don't know. I guess we'll see when it comes to that. But, each engine family has its own questionable things that are going to be, well, there's question marks with everything. The Gen 4 Coyote's running a Kevlar belt for the oil pump. I don't really see a problem with that, but other folks may see that and have a bit of a question about that. I come from a world where there's Jessel belt drives on camshafts and, things like that. I don't really worry about Kevlar belts too much. I've seen those things last longer than chains. So there's that to consider. But, that being said, there's a lot to take in here, guys. And I guess that if you're in the market for one of these half-ton trucks, really, which direction do you go in? Are you willing to be an early adopter with the new Rams and with the understanding that you can't really do anything with them until their warranty period runs out? And who's going to test what these engines are capable of based on what it may end up costing to replace turbos or, fix cylinder head gaskets or, whatever the case ends up being with those engines? I'm really excited to see where it goes just for the sake of Mopar in general. But like I say in my standalone video, guys, with the Ram, we can only hope that we can get there from here with these things. But let me check in with you guys real quick. Viage, what's up, man? Skids is in. Got the flex with the bald guy in the shades. Viage say, not sure if there's power left on the table, and those 3 liters already making 500 horsepower on 28 pounds of boost. OEM reliability is still questionable. That's right. And that's the thing. I mean, the point that you're making is very valid. It's 2 bar of boost, man. I mean, again, to put it in perspective, that is unheard of on the tuning side for a lot of the guys that hot rod EcoBoost engines. You wouldn't see them really go much past 22 ever, really, for the street on pump gas. And they're going to be they're trying to do this with a lot. It's just a lot of boost. Skids is a new Ram engine, a 6-pack too, asking for a weird friend. Oh, I'm sure you'll see badges for that. I mean, it is 6-cylinder. Why not? They're putting that badge on everything right now, aren't they? David Barlow is in. Red Dog is in. Gary is in. Skid saying the Buick Grand National, if I recall, was 13 to 15. It was 1 bar. Yep, 14 pounds, I think, is what the number was. Boost from factory, 30 pounds is a shite ton. Yeah, it is. Shane is in. What's up, man? Yeah, so, and again, to give you an idea, the EcoBoost is a 1 bar engine. It's 15 pounds of boost. So it's making 400 horsepower, 500 pound-feet of torque on half of the boost that it's taking the high output variant of the 3-liter to make the same torque number, but yet still significantly higher horsepower numbers. How we get there from here, I'm not sure. Where do we go with this? I don't know. I know that there are a lot of guys that will be, hardcore into their Hurricane 6s, and once the operating system is cracked, you're going to see some big numbers coming out of these things somehow, I'm guessing, some way. But again, I don't know what the turbos are capable of. We're already sitting on 2 bar. To get any more power out of it, you're going to need to hit it with another bar of boost, which is to say 45 pounds of boost is what you're going to be looking at for those engines. It's just not good enough to hit it with another 8 or 10 pounds of boost. All you're going to get is 100 pound-feet of torque and about another 100 horsepower with those types of boost bumps. So is that enough to scratch an itch? I'm not sure at that power level. I mean, a lot of guys are used to seeing the EcoBoost engines on, 87 octane tunes. I know that Pikes is getting 40 horsepower and like 65 or 70 pound-feet of torque, something like that. So yeah. I mean, when you start to consider the type of power that these engines are capable of producing from the factory, but start looking at the cylinder pressures that they're having to achieve to get to those power numbers, it's obnoxious. It's the same cylinder pressures that the new Demon 170 is hitting. So actually, it's higher than that. So if that gives you an idea, I mean, we're talking higher cylinder pressures than the Demon 170 that relies on E85 to get there. It's kind of a tough play. And again, especially with the new, and I'm not bringing up the Ford just because I've got one. I'm bringing it up because it's a legitimate new engine. It's only been out for a couple of years. Well, I guess technically 3, 21, 22, 23, and now the 24 model year. Although my truck's birthday is 12/12 of 2023, which means it should be a 24, but that's not how they're measuring years anymore, I guess. Again, the point that I'm getting to, though, is that you have an engine that is now capable of making torque the way that those low RPM turbo 6-cylinder, I say low RPM because they don't spin really much past 5 or 5,500 RPM, but it's making torque like that now. When you drive one of these trucks, it is a significant difference from what they used to be. To tell you that it's a big difference from my truck to my old Ram is it's an understatement, because it really does feel like you're driving a truck with like a Ram with 392 gears. That's how my truck drives, except it's got 331s and it revs to the moon by comparison. The 321 gear Ram just lays over in a way that you can't really put into words. It's a disappointing feeling in third gear where the Ford just motors right through it. That's the benefit of technology for a V8 engine. Gary, thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. Saying, can't imagine waking up and pushing my starter button in the morning and not hearing my 392 firing up. I get it. I get that we'll be fast, but I don't care. And that, Gary, you bring up a point that is extremely valid. When it comes to trucks, when it comes to cars, these are not, how do I explain this the right way? These are not rational decisions, right? I mean, we're car guys, we're truck guys, we're V8 fans, right? The sound of it, the theater, that's what we're into. And a lot of times, and this is a question that I ask myself a lot: how fast is fast enough? How fast is too fast? What is the comfortable medium? And this is a weird place to be right now, because, man, you love the power numbers. You love to hear about the power numbers, and they're accessible. I mean, these are going to be standard power outputs for the Ram coming into the year 2025, or whatever year is a solid drop for the Hemi. But is it worth it still to have the power but not the soundtrack to go along with it? And I'll be the first to admit, I love the way inline sixes sound, but universally speaking, if given my if asked for my preference, I would say V8 all the way around. And again, I voted with my pocketbook. I'll even go so far as to say that I way overspent on my F-150, but I got the exact truck that I wanted. And I didn't mind spending the money to get there, especially after I drove it. Yeah, I'll put it to you like this, guys. It's such a different driving experience. My truck does not drive like the 2021 that I drove. I don't know if that truck was a dud. I don't know if that thing just had a lot of bad gas in it. I don't know what happened to that truck, but I'm telling you, when I drove my truck, I knew right away it did not run the way that I remembered a Ford F-150 running. So, and it's legit got 331 gears. It's not a max tow package with 373s. It's a legit 331 gear truck. So it has the torque that you expect out of these turbo 6 cylinders, but it also has the V8 power up top. And again, that's something that is hard to come by, but now Ford's able to do that. I guess it makes a lot of Mopar guys ask, why couldn't they have done the same? You know, it's weird. Going back to, guys, put on your Wayback right quick, and let's talk about 2017. I want to talk to you guys about 2017 because in 2017, we were told that 2018 was the last year of the Challenger and the Charger, at least as we knew them then. The Demon, the soon-to-come Demon, when we were waiting on all the releases, that car was the last of the LX platform that we were to ever expect. There was never going to be a Red Eye. There was never going to be a Demon 170. There wasn't going to be any of that stuff. The Demon was the last of the breed. And at the time, they were talking about moving to the Maserati Ghibli and the, what was the other one? It was the Ghibli and, the other one. You know which one I'm talking about. Anyway, that was a V6 turbo. Not in the Ghibli, but the other one. Damn it. I'm looking right at it. Anyway, I'll just start. I'll say it when it comes to mind. But the Ghibli platform is what they went away from the first one, and they started looking at the Ghibli platform because it would manage, it could handle a V8. It was wide enough, deep enough, it could hold a V8. So it was the I keep want to call it the Guillermo. Like, I'm dyslexic in a way. Like, if something jumps into my head as the name of something, it sticks and it's glued there. And so it's not, but we'll call it the Guillermo, okay? So the Guillermo, that was the one that, you know, it's a really pretty car too. It would have been kind of neat if they based it off of that thing. But getting back to it, it was supposed to be that the rumored engine was about 5.5 liters, and it was a dual overhead cam engine. That was rumored. That was what they were working on. That was something that they were going to bring to market. And what ended up happening was what we know happened. Giulia, thank you. It finally landed, the Giulia platform. I told you that was how it was going to work. Anyway, the Giulia, or rather the Ghibli, was going to have this 5.5 liter V8. That's what we were told. It was kind of a rumor thing. It could have been a 5.3 or a 5.5. And the way that it was going to shape up was it was going to be, you know, what would be the power? What would be this? I was like, we don't know yet. Entry level into this is going to be like 420 and 490 horse or whatever. It's going to look a lot like these Hurricane 6s, by the way. And that's what we were kind of rolling with. It was, in essence, Mopar's Coyote. That never shook out, but that is what we could have had. And it's not like this is anything exotic. Guys, Toyotas leading up until, well, here recently, 2021, they all had 4-valve V8s. My Sequoia had a 4-valve, what was it, a 4.6, 4 whatever it was. Obviously, the Coyotes are all 4-valve V8s. This is nothing new. And this is one of the frustration points that a lot of guys had with Mopar, was that they kept dragging the Hemi along and never did anything with it. There was never any real update to it. I mean, look at it like this. I mean, Ford seems to have a new Coyote variant about every 5 or 6 years. Chevrolet has gone through LS after LS, now LT after LT variants. But Dodge never did anything with the Hemi. There was some opportunity there. And again, there were a lot of folks that were looking forward to that 5.5 liter variant of a Coyote that you could have called your own. Imagine what that would have shaped up like. A little bit more displacement out of a Coyote, makes a little bit more torque down low, heads flow great, makes tons of power. You do the math. This thing turns into a monster once you start leaning on it, right? At least you hope that it would. But that's not what ended up happening. Things just kind of got weird, and now we're looking at trucks that will not have a V8. Weird, though, that we're not talking about 3/4 ton trucks, but I guess that's beside the point. News isn't really out yet, I suppose, on those. But I guess my thoughts on this are, if you want a V8, the real smart money goes to Ford. The Chevys, GM, just don't run the way that the Ford does. And you can't get the 6.2 in a lower trim package, at least not that I'm aware of. And so that becomes kind of a non-issue. So, and by the way, the 5.0 is kind of known to do just fine against that 6.2 anyway. So there's that. So anyway, Gary, thank you very much, buddy. I appreciate that. Skids, this point can translate over to the motorcycle world. Absolutely. Some guys, no matter what these companies throw at customer, they want what they want. Inline 4 versus V-twin, 6-cylinder turbo versus NA V8. Absolutely. And the funny thing with that is, how fast is fast enough? in a world, in motorcycles, we talk about bikes for a second, in a world where liter class bikes that are just breathed on are making 190 horsepower to the rear wheel, you can't compare bikes anymore. It's either sanely fast or stupid fast now. Rare are the bikes that are making 125 to 145 horsepower to the rear wheel. Basically, it's crazy. But that's what's happening now with the power output of some of these trucks too. Also saying, great point. Go back and see if Ram starts a 6-cylinder twin turbo alongside the Hemi and let them battle some and see what they do. Even dabble in EV alongside the current gas offerings. And that brings up a good point. Ram was supposed to have realistically, Ram should have been first to market with an EV truck. Whatever happened with that thing? What was it called? The Revolt, right? The Revolt, the Revolution. That's what it was. Wasn't that supposed to have already hit? Whatever happened to that truck? Everybody else has got some variant of an EV pickup truck. This is weird. I mean, if the argument for Ram as well, the market didn't, market conditions and whatever said that wasn't going to work. Well, people buy what they want to buy. People buy with their heart. And I get where the 6-cylinder is going to do well. It's going to be powerful. It's going to scoot, whatever. But okay. So, and here's the other thing. There is a world where that doesn't matter. And that's the world that you're in when you're actually driving these vehicles. I can't, and I've never driven my truck, my F-150. I've never driven that truck and thought, man, this thing's got to it needs another 50 horsepower. I am going to do some things to optimize it. It will eventually get a tune. I've already got a cold air on the way. You guys know I've already installed an exhaust on it. So there are some things that I'm working on to make that truck more optimized. And I've data logged it, and I know where I can pick up a little bit of power, it looks like. By the way, data log on that truck is, it's stock, so you expect it to be clean. But guys, this is the first NA engine that I've ever data logged where I had higher manifold pressure than ambient pressure, if you can believe that. I had it by 2 points, intake manifold pressure because of flow stacking. It was higher in the manifold than it was outside. That's how efficient that engine is. So say what you will about power outputs and Mopar, no car, all this other stuff. When I look at data, which is all I care about, like I say, I'm an engine guy, not a brand guy. And when I look at data point, here, let me bring it up for you real quick. KPA, let me drag this thing over here. Let's see. This isn't a complete list, but purple, 103.7, green, KPA 102. What that means is barometric pressure was 102. Inside the manifold, it's reading overpressure at 103.7. That's almost 2 full points at 6,100, actually 6,200 RPM. And it completed the shift at 6,500 RPM. Actually, I'm sorry. 6533, it completes the shift. So, yeah. That's kind of how that ends up looking. So, you've got to take that with a grain of salt, I guess. And it is completing a shift, so it's got a little bit of carryover. That's some stuff I'm going to have to fix. But yeah, final over KPA is 104 flat. I think is the highest that it went. So check that out. That's fairly significant when you start to break things down. Oh yeah, and AFR is the exact same commanded that I command on Hemis, which is 1235. Well, I've been on to something. That's what the command AFR is. So that's some interesting stuff. And the more I'm learning about this platform, the more impressed I am with it. And just how efficient the V8 is. Why didn't Dodge do the same? I guess that's the real takeaway for me. So, oh, Gary, yeah, agreed. Should have had a 32 valve for sure. Brent, thank you very much, brother. Appreciate it. No one wants their EVs or these EVs at all yet. GM and Ford are slowing way down building them, and Mopar is all in on them. Very dumb. Hey, Brent, let me carry your point even further. So right now, Ford is offering $15,000 off the sticker price on Lightnings. And for you guys that are in the know on that, I mean, Ford doesn't take money off of any of their trucks, and they're trying to throw those trucks in the garbage right now. And that it's also true for Mach-E's, but not the same kind of numbers. On the lot that I bought my truck on, they had, I quit counting at 12 Lightnings in a row on their lot. So, just something to consider. But thank you very much, and a very good point at that. Brent, the 6.2s are slow in the 2500. Yeah. I mean, there's supposed to be the hot rod engine in the 1500. I don't know if there's a difference in intakes and cams, but you put a 5.0 up against one, and it doesn't always go in the 6.2's favor. More often than not, it doesn't. X is asking, are the standard output and HO i6 the same engine with just a different tune? No, not at all. There are some big differences between the two. My understanding is that the HO has better rods, different pistons. It's got a lower compression ratio than the standard output does, believe it or not. I was kind of shocked by that myself. Same turbos, same cylinder heads, same camshafts, I believe. Different camshaft phasing, though. And obviously, and the tune is different between the two, but those are the differences from my understanding. But just kind of getting back to it, guys, I wanted to share my thoughts on this. I will be putting that video out probably tomorrow. It's definitely a good background noise generator, as what you would expect. Only right, the most mundane for me. But the other thing I wanted to do is I wanted to bring to you guys just a little bit of, why, or a little bit of the what behind the why when I'm talking about this Coyote stuff. Just how good it really is, but how good it really could have been if Ram would have followed suit. I'm, again, left a little bit flummoxed as to why they didn't go that route. Again, I feel like this is what they were leading us into so many years ago. I mean, it is about 7 years ago that, it seems like it was yesterday, but it was actually quite that long ago. When we were starting to hear some of these rumors, and this was where we were going to be at about this time in history. So, but with that, here's where we are, and I'm not panning the Hurricane engine at all. I've driven the Grand Wagoneer, and if you've seen the video, I came away from that just like, holy crap, I'm kind of shocked over here. Just for that land barge, that Leviathan, to be as fast as it was, it just absolutely took me by surprise. So, what do you do with that? I don't know. Eric is in. What's up, buddy? Moto X is in. Greetings. But yeah, again, the reality is that we don't have these trucks out yet. They have not been, the way that I see it, they haven't been battle tested, so to speak. And we need that to take place before we can realistically offer up even a remotely sophisticated opinion of them. Brent, thank you very much. I'm saying the new Ram with a 440 horsepower is 70 really plus when you build one online. No way. They are not priced right to sell. Damn. Is that, okay, wait a minute. Is that 440, is that the high output or is that the regular output? You got the 420 and the 510, or is it 540 now with the HO for that? Let me know what that one is. I'm curious. But yeah, they're $70,000 though. That's too much. Guys, that's... So here's what ends up happening. Okay, so... And again, this is where you just kind of roll your eyes. It'll be lighter. This new Hurricane setup is going to be lighter than the outgoing V8. Fantastic. But when you start to line these things up against some of their contemporaries, the Rams are known to be a bit heavy. So you're going to need the extra power. It already needs the power to be able to hang. I mean, you guys have already seen, and my truck really isn't even through break-in yet. I mean, it is, but it's not. And it's already clipped off 5.5 second 0 to 60 times. I mean, shit. Are you kidding me? And that's in like muggy, sticky kind of weather. So there's that. Heat soaked. It went 570. And I mean heat soaked, idling heat soaked. It went 570, and then fresh off of a long drive, it went 558. So, I mean, it is a legitimately fast truck. And, these types of 0 to 60 times are just, out of this world. So, admittedly, in four-wheel high, it's a four-wheel drive truck. But I guess where I'm going with this is the more that you start to look at the proposition of these H6 trucks, the more they're going to, I mean, they've already got a lot that they're going to have to live up to when you're looking at the Fords. And God, the Ford's been doing it Ford's been doing it for a long time. And the EcoBoost offerings, although say what you will about fuel economy with those things, they're going to have their hands full. Where the Hurricane will do well, where the Hurricane will do well is on the highway against the 3.5 EcoBoost. because the 3.5 EcoBoost really does lay over, you know, on the big end. More so than you might think. So I don't know. Oh, so it's 540, yeah, and that's what I thought. I mean, and all of them are expensive. Yeah, Brent's saying, yeah, that the HO 70 grand plus. I mean, you're going to be looking at trucks that are $80,000 to get that engine in them. I mean, $70,000 is going to be a truck that it's going to be loaded to the gills anyway. It's going to be heavy. It might even just need the extra power to get moving. It's probably not going to be that far removed in terms of weight from the Wagoneer that I drove. So again, I mean, I don't want to, and golly, that if you'd have told me that Wagoneer was making 600 horsepower, I would have believed it. That thing absolutely got out of its own way, but I don't know. It drives me nuts that, oh man, it drives me nuts that there's not a V8 offering from Dodge in the same guise that we could have had that was rumored to be under development that would put it in the same light as the Coyote is today. Because my goodness, God, the Gen 4 Coyote is awesome to drive. Let's see. Oh, Eric's hanging out with Skid. Skid saying, question here, will it be the 446 pack? Yeah. That would be kind of funny. Yeah, they're going to wear that name out. I mean, because it's 6 cylinders. There was like, you know, the 6-pack dragsters for the 6-cylinder dragsters back in the day. It's like, oh my God, here they all come. You know, it's like somebody was just waiting to unleash that name onto the world. I find that to be kind of funny. Moto, hey Sovereign, hey Brian, hey, what's up, Moto? Skids, couldn't help myself. I know it, right? Is there a Super Commando on the way? You know, surprisingly, I think that Super Commando would at least have a little bit of panache if they would have had that 4-cam V8 down the line. That would have been pretty sick for something like that. But, you know, just to back up that whole Hemi thing, you know, call it, you know, version, you know, the Project 904-2, you know, that would have been pretty slick too for the guys that are really deep into the know. But it was Project 904. Anyway, you guys get the idea. It's just, it's one of those things where you just kind of, it's cringy. I don't like that. It's the 6-pack car. The reason why I don't like them calling it 6-pack is 6-pack was it was a legit intake system for the 440 and for the 340. For the RB cars that needed a better intake manifold because they were overrated from the factory. They were intake manifold limited. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, the 6-pack cars had 3 2-barrel carburetors, but the intake manifolds for an RB Mopar, they're all the same. An RB is 440, well, really any of the 4-barrel wedge-headed. So 413, 426, and 440 all have the same kind of a not very good pancake 4-barrel intake manifold. And to combat that, you had the 6-pack intake, which was 246, as in 6-pack barrels, split up between 3 2-barrels. You had a center primary and then 2 sister carbs, and basically you ran the whole setup ran off of the center 2-barrel. And then with progressive linkage, you started to incorporate the other 2 barrels, and then wide open throttle. They're really good. I mean, they're every bit as good as a modern dual plane intake today. I mean, they really were that good back then. And they needed it because, yeah, that's one of the few times, and it's in one of the few cars where something like that really did make a big difference. And it helped them make their rated horsepower, quite frankly, because they weren't doing it with that crappy little pancake manifold. The 340, I think, had one too. And then before that, the original big block, the 350 that you would have seen in the movie Christine in that Belvedere. I know Fury, but it's actually a Belvedere. That would have been a dual quad engine. There was a power pack option for that. So, and that was the Golden Commando 350. So, with its biggest iteration was a 400, but that was during the Malaise era. The hot rodded version, or at least the warmed over version, would have been the 383. But that car never had a dual quad. But the 50s were a dual quad era. Anyway, getting back to it, I digress, and I'm digressing the hell out of that. Oh, Brent, thanks again, man. My father-in-law just got a new RT Durango 72K. It's nice. When I bought my 15, it was only 46. Very nice, man. I appreciate the contribution, my friend. I really do. Looking over at the clock, we are coming up. I've got about 15 minutes, and then I've got to split. But thank you so very much, man. I appreciate it. Let's see. Bear with me here. But thank you, Brent. I appreciate it. RT Durangos are nice. One of my favorite vehicles that we had at the shop, we had two of them. Two buddies bought two RT Durangos, but we put Whipple superchargers on both of them. And one of the guys worked offshore, and the other guy worked out of the country. So they were out of town a lot. And basically, I said, look, just get it put together, drive it, keep miles put on it. When I get back, I'll pick it up, but I want it to be driven while I'm gone. Like, cheers. It was like having our own. It was really nice on the inside. So we didn't beat on it or anything like that. It was just a good running. In fact, the only time that I know of that truck ever going watt was when it was on the dyno. With that Whipple and a 5.7, you just never really needed to ever go watt with it. But we'd grab it, take it around the block, keep the battery charged, stuff like that. Let's see. Bear with me, guys. This kid saying, well, look at the i6 Wagoneer. Yeah, the one that I drove stickered at 0108. Eric saying, I'm hearing the Mopar community is not happy at all with this EV stuff, or just the Hurricane 6-cylinder engines, and are telling Dodge that they need to come out with a new lighter V8. Man, there's a lot of people that have been complaining about not having a 4-cam V8 since 2017 when the rumors were hitting. So, just saying. Oh, skids, and you can get into a Coyote for blue collar money. Hey, how about this, bro? You can get a short cab regular bed. In other words, short bed regular cab, I should say, and get a V8 in it. And it's a hot rod from the factory. It's a deep 13-second car from the factory, or truck, I should say. Yeah. I mean, again, they're not cheap. Ford, the downside to Ford is that they're not cheap. But look, you know where your money's being spent. And again, I went way over budget with mine. But I said to myself this: look, that Ram that I had was not going up in value. It was a quad cab, not a crew cab, so that was a bit of an issue too as far as resale value goes. But and the trucks weren't getting any cheaper. So if I didn't make the switch when I did, I'd be looking at even an uglier downside on the rest of it. And plus, they had the exact truck that I wanted, so you go ahead and go with what they've got. But yeah, you can get into a Coyote for a lot less money. You can get a hot rod too if you want one. There's a lot of good things to be said about that platform. They're saying Stellantis is destroying these brands, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Chrysler, so it's not looking too good for them. No, it's not. Moto 5.7 should be retained and revamped with better head design using better metallurgy. If it were me, I would. What that engine desperately needs is a dual fuel system and higher compression. This is where the Hemi really doesn't do well. This has been a big gripe of mine about the Hemi for the longest amount of time. What it needs is higher compression. 10-to-1 compression is not good enough with tumble port heads. It just is not. That engine needs to be around 11.5 to 1, just like the 392 is 11 to 1, basically. 5.7 or whichever one you pick needs to be at least 11.5 to 1, if not 12 to 1. Let me look at the Coyote in my truck is a 12 to 1 engine, guys. 12.5 to, or I'm sorry, 12 to 1, not 12.5. That's like race car numbers. But I've got a 12 to 1. Guys, my Z1 is not even 12 to 1. My truck has the highest compression ratio in the garage. All right, so, and that includes the motorcycles. It's nuts. So if you're going to stay 2-valve and you're going to stay Hemi architecture, which is to say significantly angled valves, you've got to have a high compression ratio. You've got to have a low quench area. There's a lot that you need to do to get that thing to be as efficient as possible. And to do that, and to pass emissions and make it to where it works right, you would want to have direct injection. To get that engine in the right place, that's exactly what you would have had to have done. And to do that would yield you about a 12% power increase. So it doesn't sound like a lot, but that's 12% everywhere you look. And so, and 6% of that would be coming from just the fact that you've got a higher compression ratio. The other side of that would be in pumping efficiency. It's already great, but you don't have to ferry fuel along with it and just have a dual fuel just like the Coyotes do. To keep the valves clean. It can be done, and I know it can be done because it's being done like right behind where I'm sitting right now. So, Curtis is asking, is the 6-pack faster than the 5.7? It will be, yes, by an order of magnitude, yes. RT or SRT, cheese and rice, that is. Yeah. See, Brent's saying, no, RT just a 5.7. No, it's nothing wrong with RT, man. Or nothing wrong with 5.7, rather. I mean, 5.7's a 5.7 as far as I'm playing it. And yeah, those two rigs were nice. They were real nice. Chris, okay, cool. Skids, check Car Gurus. Here in DFW, the cheapest SRT is $76,000. Freaking A. Donald saying, chimed in late. Durango SRT 2023, brand new 76. Jesus Christ. Eric's checking in with Brent. Brent saying hello. RCSB saying, or Skid saying RCSB, hell yeah, man. DM saying, good evening, y'all. Then saying, you said the Hellcat couldn't hook up on the street. Correct. And why did you buy one? Because I had a drag strip. Just to take it to the drag strip or what? Yeah. It's also a good road trip car. They're comfortable to take on long trips. So it is definitely not a race car. And I used it a lot for development. I mean, the tuning development was key using that car, especially on the drag strip. Did a lot of street hits, getting shift points just right for that car. It's gonna say, yep, B-Race is on a drag strip. Yells are right in. Vince asks, do you think the Demon 170 is still a very impressive car, even though its top speed is 149? It is a very impressive car. It's got a limited top speed because of the tires that it runs. Skid's checking in with DM. What's up? What's up, DM? Oh, Southern said my recent track event yielded a 7.0 8th mile at 98. That's stout. 1095 at 124. That's a fun running car right there. That's a clean car. The 7.0s in 1090s, that's a fun setup. And it's hard to argue when you're running those kind of numbers, because to get much faster than that means you got to start sinking a lot of time and effort into them. Vincent, so then the Hellcat and its variants suck at roll racing and normal streets? Yeah, they do. I would not recommend one. I used to go sniping after Hellcats with my vet. Um, matter, matter of fact, my vet was a pretty basic build. It was a 04 Z06 LS6, basically a full bolt-on car with a cam. It had a Veraram intake, lightly touched up heads, an England green cam, arguably too much cam for that car. I did the detent mod, which is a transmission thing that you do with Corvettes. Makes it shift a little bit easier. Let's see, what else was done to that thing? I mean, long tubes. Did I mention long tubes? That's it. That's it. And I would, oh my God, I would piss off Hellcat owners with that thing. And I mean, it would not run out of the life of a stock Hellcat, but you would have to have a mod. You would have to have had my Hellcat to run with my Z06 from a roll. So that was a fun car. Vince asking, do you think the new electric Chargers will be offered in wide bodies in the future? I don't, maybe. Are they also going to make new generation of Challengers? No, I don't think that if they did, I don't think it would be Challenger. I think they would call it something else. I don't know why, but the CUDA name keeps getting thrown around. I know everybody is just waiting to bust over Dodge calling something a CUDA. All I can say is this: if they call something a CUDA, it better as hell haul ass, because some of the crap that, like the Stealth and the Hornet, oh my gosh. They're misnaming a lot of their cars right now, and it's getting a little bit frustrating. Southern, on 93 octane, very nice, very nice. So yeah, I was a huge 93 octane only guy. I wanted to run pump gas out of this Exxon station right up the street, and that's what I did all my data logging with. So I did all pump gas. That's what I did all my test hits with, and I would make those same test hits with that same gas in crazy deep density altitude. I mean, it would be nights where the track wouldn't even open up because it was too cold for the track prep to work. I would be out doing test hits with that car in like 30-degree weather, and it would get a little bit spooky every once in a while because the car was making a whole lot of power and the tires were not all that warm. So yeah, I did one video where I was swapping out filters live in the middle of doing test hits. And I had, let's see, I was at 104% injector duty cycle. It was, I mean, and that's with stock injectors. I was overrunning stock injectors to keep that thing alive. So pretty fun stuff. Skid saying, I hate to admit it, back when I had my C6 M6, got my R speed off the line by, albeit a bullet or a built 3/4 ton 6.6. That dude had that oil burner turned up. Lots of that happening down here. There were some guys, some diesel guys. This is kind of back in the day, but there were some diesel dudes back probably about 10 years ago that were making some serious asses out of fools on the street. What was fun is heads cam intake M6 vets were a lot of fun for me to race with Shalandra. I had some of the absolute closest races that I've ever had was Shalandra up against again M6 HCI C6s, because I would check out on their ass. I mean, tire for tire, drag pack, the whole bit. I would check out on them, and I would be about 2 or 3 car lengths ahead, depending on how big of a cam and how the guy was driving the car. at the 8th mile, and then they would start reeling me in. And I mean, I could see them marching on my ass, and it was like, I gotta get across. I'm not kidding, guys. I had more fun. I ran into, oh man, this is going back some years, but there was 6 or 7 of these guys at the track one night, and I went like rounds with these boys. And dude, Shalandra was holding her own, and it only lost when I spun. I had 2 hits where I spun, and I still got out, but I lost just enough time where I had the guy clip me on the big end. And that happened twice that night. But that was a lot of fun. It's, again, some of the best racing ever. But man, when they were coming up on me, they were pulling me in so quick. It was as fast as I left them, they were reeling me in on the big end. I was like, I know what you're up to, because I had one of those. But I was saying, return to the 2-door Charger. It is coming. Vince is, are you also saying that Hellcats and its variants aren't impressive cars? When did I say that they weren't? If I were to say that they weren't, I would say that they're not impressive cars. What I've said about the Hellcat is that they are heavy. They've got the coefficient of drag of a barn. They're numb to drive because they're stable. They're numb to drive. They're heavy because they're heavy duty. They're reliable as hell. They're extremely powerful. So they're impressive in their own right. I wouldn't say that they're not impressive. I would say that it's incredible how durable that they are. They're very well overbuilt. The HP 90 is a transmission that a lot of folks can take some lessons from in terms of how much power that thing can handle and how long it will handle the power for. There's a lot of things about it that are impressive, but there are a lot of things that are also really impressive about other cars. It doesn't exist in a vacuum. And listen, say what you want about, people say, well, yeah, you got to modify a Mustang, or you got to modify a this or do a this to a that to get to the same level as a Hellcat. I agree. The Hellcat stock for stock is extremely hard to mess with on a drag strip. That's where it does the best work. On the street, though, not so much. But that's not that car's mission statement. Hellcat from jump is always and has always been a track-focused car. That's the only place that you can apply that much power and that much torque to the ground effectively. And this, again, it gets into my argument of how fast is fast enough, how fast is too fast. Is it that the Hellcat, its blessings were its curses? And that's an interesting place to be. Because when a car is, I don't want to use the term undrivable, but when it doesn't give you the ability to drive it the way that you could normally drive any other car on the street, then you're going to notice that. And this is why so many guys, you talk to, street race guys. First of all, there is no racing from a dig. That's such a, there is. I get it. Business park guys, I understand all of that. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but for the vast majority of guys, you're not meeting up behind the floor and decor and making hits from a dig. What you're doing is you're rolling down the highway, and that's where you're making the most hits, and that's where a pro-charged Coyote is really hard to deal with. That's where, and that's why so many guys go that route, whether it's a Coyote truck or cars, because that's where a lot of the freaking racing takes place. And listen, my background, my Viper stuff was closed circuit racing, some drag racing. I did fairly well with that car, drag racing, but the vast majority of it was roll racing, street racing in that respect. Kurt's asking, what will the Hellcat be next to the new Dodge lineup? Oh, what will the next Hellcat be in the next? I don't know, man. I don't know. It's going to take something special, and I don't know what is next. The Banshee, I guess. And that's the thing. You start talking about the Banshee, but the problem with the Banshee is that it's going to use an 800-volt system. Its range is going to be limited. I already know how it looks with the Maserati Gran Turismo. That's going to be the platform that it's going to be based off of, and there's not enough milliamp hours in that battery. I want to say it's 128. And the Tesla Plaid is a 400 with 110. As far as the kilowatt hours or whatever the hell. Anyway, it'll have 60% of the range of a Plaid, and about 100 more horsepower. Does that matter? I don't know. Well, we're about to find out, but they got to do something quick with that thing too. And as far as pricing goes, oh my God, this is where things get ugly. So here's the thing. If you want to talk about the EV side of this, the Plaid, which car for car is, yes, I hate to tell you this, but it's faster than the Demon 170. You charge that Plaid up all the way and you pull weight out of that thing, you can believe what you want, but there ain't an Easter bunny. And I'm sorry, that's the way that it works with EVs. That's what they're designed to do. So fast forward that over to, the Banshee. It's going to be fast as hell. It will be faster than the Plaid, the way that the Plaid sits now, but it's not going to have much in terms of range. And I question the speed controller with that thing too. The power control module, if you will. In this case, I'm talking about an actual speed module, though. We'll see how it works with that kind of load. DM saying the Hornet is Dodge's version of skinny jeans on men. It should never have happened. No, it shouldn't. Vincent, burger and fries. 100%. Burger and fries, especially if I'm grinding my own. Pizza's good, though. But again, I've got to be making my own. But burger, so what you do on the burger side, 90% lean, you're going to take a pork loin, and if you're going to make 2 pounds of beef, you're going to take about half a pound of pork loin. And then what I want you to do is I want you to get a packet of bacon. And what you're going to do is on your flat iron, you are going to, in a cast iron skillet, you're going to take your bacon and you're going to render it. Okay, so you're going to render the fat from the bacon, and you're going to ground your own lean beef and your pork loin. Get all of that ground up proper. Get it into your kneading bowl. You're going to take your rendered bacon, and you're going to put the bacon grease and the bacon itself into your actual mix. You're going to dice the bacon extremely thin. And at this point, the bacon fat itself should be completely rendered, where you only have the protein part of it left. Mix that. You're going to put in a little bit of garlic, actual garlic, not garlic powder, any of the cheap shit. Coarse ground pepper, and sea salt. Mix all of that into the mix. Now, if you want at this time, take 2 white onions with olive oil, and you can hold back some of the rendered bacon at this point. Put that into your flat iron. You're going to grill your onions, and then you can dice them and put that into the mix as well. Patty them up, and the idea with the patty is that it's your hand times 2. That's your thickness right there. That meat part, that's the meat part of your hand. You on a flat iron, you can either bake them or you can grill them or cook them, however you like to do it, to a medium, not medium rare, but a medium, because it's ground meat. You don't want to go any leaner. You don't want to go any more rare than medium with that. And serve that up. And if that doesn't change your idea between going with pizza or burgers, I may have just changed the life of some of you guys if you do your own cooking. So give it a shot. Vincent, can you really feel a difference between a Hellcat and a Red Eye? Yes, big time you can. Man, Eric, so here's the thing. There's a lot of us that were hoping they would bring back something like the Galaxy, and that Chevrolet would drag something back like the Chevelle. They just never really happened. Oh, Skids, yeah, a lot of the last calls were having issues. I heard that too. OX, welcome 1320 enthusiasts to track days. Yep. Yeah, all of that would be good. I agree, Skids. Itches in. Good day. You plugging the Banshee Weird Science. I know, right? Moto X Dragon Gourmet era. Yes. Skids medium burger. Had one today on a green bun. Delicioso. Very much so. Well, guys, with that, I've got to wrap it up. But I want to thank each and every one of you guys for hanging out. Seriously, would not do this without you. Brent, thank you so much for the support. Really do, truly appreciate that a ton. It means a lot, my friend. It really does. And guys, when I say get out there and do something cool for somebody, chances are they need it way more than you know. A little bit of behind the scenes. Recently lost a friend of mine, and it's under those types of circumstances. You know, it's one of those types of deals where, you know, to say to have grace with yourself and to have grace with others, get out there and do something cool for somebody. It really does come from the heart. There's a lot of folks out there right now that are struggling through some stuff that you don't even know. You know, a lot of times people can come off as a little bit gruff or distant. If you see somebody, if you notice somebody that is kind of separating themselves from the hurt a little bit, reel them in a little bit, give them somebody to talk to, because you might just be saving their life. And with that, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. I will catch y'all on the next one. Thank y'all so much. Love each and every one of y'all, and we will see you later. That's a wrap. Adios, guys.